Jesus was standing by the Sea of Galilee, also called the Lake of Gennesaret. A crowd had gathered listening to him proclaim the word of God. Beyond the crowd that was pressing on Jesus, there were two boats pulled ashore along the lake. One belonged to Peter and the other to James and John. These fishermen were not among the crowd. They were off washing their nets after a frustrating night of fishing. Jesus climbed into Peter's boat and asked him to push off. Now, we can look at this as Jesus merely trying to make his speech more efficient, better to be heard, as well as providing a way to escape when he finished. But I don't think this lesson was put in the Bible as a lesson on crowd security or even acoustics. Yes, Jesus was temporarily using the boat as his pulpit, but he was intending to make these ordinary fishermen fishers of men. The fishermen had finished washing their nets, and Jesus had finished his teaching, and so he asked Peter to put out to deeper waters and let down the net for a catch. Note here, Jesus made a declaratory statement. He ordered them to go out into the deep and to put out their net to catch fish. In other words, Jesus was issuing both a command and a promise. The command was to go out into the deep and put out their nets. The promise was there would be a catch. Now, let's put this in context. Peter had worked hard all night. He was tired and frustrated from a fruitless night, and now he was being ordered by a carpenter about fishing. He had cleaned his gear, pulled his boat into shore. Now it was daytime. The night was the best time for fishing. Why should he listen? But it was his respect for Jesus that caused him to listen and obey. The result was incredible. The nets were so full they began to break. They signaled to their partners to help, and even with two ships, the harvest was so large that both of the boats began to sink. Now, every miracle has its purpose, and this one was no exception. Simon Peter was the leader among this group of men. He immediately responded by falling prostrate at the feet of Jesus in an act of humility and worship. The reluctant fisherman, Peter, now saw Jesus in an entirely different light. Jesus was Lord. He was a sinful man. Even Peter's terms changed from master to Lord, indicating a respect for his greater power and his greatness. Peter not only confessed the greatness of the Lord, but he also confessed his own sinful nature. Peter saw his resistance to obeying the Lord's command to let down his nets as a sin. Peter thought that he was the expert on fishing, but now he sees that the Lord is Lord of the sea as well. Now he saw the Lord's sovereignty. He could see clearly his sin, and he felt unworthy to be in the presence of the Lord. This miracle, this daytime massive catch, was so astounding that it caused all of these fishermen to be amazed. Jesus responded to Peter's actions, saying, "Do not be afraid," and promised that he would become fisher of men. Now, how does the Lord's words square with what Peter had just said? Well, like most of us, when we meet someone famous, we sometimes get a little nervous. Peter had some fear about that, but he was also fearful about making a life-changing choice, about leaving his life and occupation as a fisherman and following Jesus. We all have mixed feelings with change, and when we face life-altering change, like a relationship with Jesus, we want to know, are we good enough? Will we fail? How will our life be different? Peter was fearful also because he recognized his sin and the Lord's righteousness. The words of Peter, "Depart from me, Lord," reveal his awareness that a holy God cannot have an intimate communion with a sinful man. Ultimately, the Lord's provisions for Peter's sin is even more abundant than his provision of fish. The provisions will be made at the cross, where he will die for the sins of the world. That's the lesson for this week. Have a great week.